panel is business of the business voice acting, but I'm going to be honest with you. If you have a question that's not about voice acting or localization or dubbing or any of that stuff, you can ask that too. I don't really have a Q&A panel, so it's just me, and I'm being super casual because I feel like that's just the way to go at a convention. So, I'm Laura Post. I'm a voice actress. I'm Kasumi in Persona 5 Royal, Ragyo, Kiryuin in Kill la Kill, Isabella in Promised Neverland, Ari in League of Legends, Valentine in Skullgirls, go to IMDb, I don't know. But I also do some casting and directing for dubbing, and I have done a little bit of script adaptation as well. Some of the projects I've worked on for casting and directing are Little Witch Academia, the series on Netflix, Godzilla Planet of Monsters on Netflix, and Pokemon Twilight Wings on YouTube. So I have a nice chunk of experience from all three sort of arenas there of the localization world. So I'm hoping to maybe provide some insight on you know, that kind of, I know lots of people have questions about like, well, why did this go this way? Or why does this happen this way? And I'm hopefully here to answer your questions. And if you don't have questions, I will probably just ramble for 45 minutes. So there's that. So come on up if you have a question.
We got 2 mics.
There's 2 mics, so.
Check.
You can go first though.
Do you want to run off of 2 mics or do you want to run off of 1?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right, so you guys can figure it out, but you will go first. I have decided.
Yeah. How you doing? Thank you so much for putting on the panel. I actually am a voice artist myself. I do narration for books.
Very nice.
I have 6 demos and things like that because I would love to get into the world. What kind of advice do you have, if that's an appropriate question, for
Absolutely.
transitioning
This is
over?
100% appropriate to the title of the panel question. So you have a demo for narration, or you have a demo for characters?
For narration, for anime, and Japanese and English,
Awesome.
since I speak both.
Okay, so the tricky thing is, even with the pandemic, it's best to try and be in a city where they're dubbing, whether that's New York or Dallas or LA. Yeah,
I live in New York.
Oh, you live in New York. Great. Well, then there you go. The next trick is to get an agent. Do you have a New York agent? That's the main reason we make demos. The demos aren't so much to get us work, it's to get us an agent, so that the agent can get us auditions, so that maybe we can book an audition, so that we can get work. There used to be a website that was great, because you could listen to local agents and like listen to all the demos on their roster, and that site doesn't exist anymore. So the best, I know that they do classes in New York, like, I would take 1 or 2 classes. You can get to know other actors that are up and coming in New York.
Okay.
And then they might have hints about what's going on with agents. Also, lots of agents teach workshops, which is a great way to get in front of agents. Both my agents, actually, I took classes with. So my first agent that I got when I moved out to LA, I took a workshop with, and then they were like, we're really interested in you. Are you represented? And then I took a promo workshop where a guest director happened to be an agent, and he was like, I really like you, are you represented? And I was like, technically yes, but I'm not, my contract is coming up soon, and that's how I ended up switching agents.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
yeah, so hopefully that helps.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thanks. Your turn.
All right, so just one quick announcement for everybody here when you want to come up, ask a question to Laura. If you're a little soft-spoken and you can't, speak up, you are permitted to pull down your mask just for a moment to ask your question, okay? Just want to let you guys know that. And also, if you guys want to, like I said, you guys are welcome to use both microphones to line up. We'll be alternating back and forth. So if you don't have to fill up one side of the room, if you want to come over, we can use both mics.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm also kind of trying to break into the industry a little bit. First off, I used to be an artist, so I've been listening to you for a long time. But second, My coach, who I've been working with, one of the things that she always stresses with going into auditions is versatility and being able to show kind of a wide range of abilities, and just kind of wanted your take on that, whether you thought that was something that was really important or if there was something else.
I think also, you're in the right place, by the way, if you want to do voiceover stuff. I actually got my start at a convention. I was like, oh, hey, voiceover, that's what I wanted to do when I was a kid. And I went to every single panel and I took notes, and then I went back to the internet and took more notes. So, yeah, conventions. Forgot to mention that in my intro. But yeah, versatility is certainly important. It's a tool you have in your toolkit that makes you more appealing to casting directors. But if you are a voice actor and it's like, well, I really only have like my voice, I can't do like a million different voices, that's okay too. You can have a very full and successful career without the versatility. What I would say is don't, in my opinion, I don't want to, and everything I say is my opinion, by the way. Every actor has a different opinion on everything, so. What I would say is don't force showing versatility. I've definitely been in situations in my career where someone is just trying really hard to impress me, and it's like, I can tell, like, it's okay, I get it, you really want this job, or you really want to work, and I get it, but I don't need you doing a new voice every 3 words that you say to me, you know what I mean? But if you're given the opportunity to do something that's a little different, I literally booked a character, and they were like, oh, we want her to have a light Irish accent. And I got into the session, they were like, yeah, we think, when we worked with you on this other project, I think you like made a joke or something in the accent, so we knew you could do it. And I was like, I do not remember this at all, but cool, great. I'm glad that I made that joke, I guess, because that led to some more work. But yeah, so versatility is nice. It definitely is appealing when I'm casting and I need to bring in people to do incidentals, because as in dubbing and in video games and everything, we get you for X amount of hours. Like in dubbing, you get a 2-hour minimum, which means if we're bringing you in for 1 line, we're paying you for 2 hours. So we might as well get as much as we can out of you in those 2 hours that we can, just from a budget standpoint. So the more voices you can do, if it's like, well, I could bring in John, and he would be really great for it, but I can only get him to do maybe like 1 or 2 other parts. Or I could bring in Joe, who's also really great at it. Maybe not quite as great as John, but Joe can do like 10 other parts. It might go to Joe just because budgeting is also a part of the casting process, whether we like it or not. So it is definitely something that you have at your disposal that makes you more attractive, but it does not mean you can't do voice acting if you don't have a million voices.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello, thank you for being here first off. So I know it tends to depend on what kind of auditions and jobs you're looking for. So for those who don't yet have like an agent, or how would you recommend going about finding new auditions, or would you just scour the internet, or? Yeah,
so obviously things are constantly changing. So things are different than when I was like on the hard hustle, for example. You know, it was like, oh yeah, I was part of online voice acting. There we go, I'm a professional. Online voice acting communities that were on message boards, but message boards don't really happen now. I think it's like, oh, Discord servers are like where it's at. So, you know, it's always kind of changing. But you can still find those communities, and there are like, indie games are always looking for voice actors. I do, the way I ended up doing I do audio description, which is like narration of films and TV shows for low vision audiences. I originally got into that by responding to a Craigslist ad. So it's totally possible to hunt down those opportunities when you don't have an agent. It just takes a lot of effort. I definitely would spend hours online just like going through Craigslist for anything that looked like it was legit, and going through message boards and all of those different sorts of resources that are online. I don't know if that helps.
Yes, it does.
Cool, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
I love your costume.
Thank you. I'm like in terrible pain.
I understand.
Like for the cosplay. But I had a question about demos, because most people have asked, like, well, what would be the best to put in there? Because some people have like a lot of stuff, some people have like only a few stuff, like that could be really great. And it's just like, what if you're already in something and you just want to show that off? Like, so like, what would be the difference between a demo and a portfolio campaign?
Well, for a voice actor, a demo is it's not, a demo isn't your resume, but a demo is kind of like your portfolio, where it's like, I might not have worked on these things, like these might not be professional productions that are on my demo, but this is like the best of my work. The point, as I mentioned earlier, the point of a demo is truly to get an agent, not so much to get work. Usually when people are looking for characters to voice, or actors to voice characters in projects, they want an audition with specific sides for them. But to get an agent, technically the best kind of demo you need is a commercial demo, because commercials are where the money's at, and that's what the agents want you to book most of all. As for making a character demo, you can do anywhere from 1 minute to like 1 minute 45, which gives you a pretty good amount of time if you don't have a lot of voices. Stick closer to a minute and show all your different acting skills. When I'm making a demo, like when I'm refreshing my demo or helping a friend with the demo, it's like, yeah, you can put on 8 different voices, but if they're all in the same kind of scene, like if they're all doing comedy scenes, that's gonna sound samey even if you do have a bunch of different voices. So you wanna do, you know, a tough character, maybe a tough character but in an emotional scene, or like a really funny comedy character in something understated. Like there's so many different ways to show your acting range, which you can definitely use to like fill out that demo. Even if you don't have a million voices, you know, you can do a million different things. There's Lorenzo Music, who some people might know as the voice of Garfield.
Garfield and Tommy Gummy. Those are 2 characters. Same voice.
Yes, he had a demo. He only has his voice, basically. Like, if you've heard Garfield, that's Lorenzo Music's voice. He had a demo that was just him saying hello for a minute. But he said hello, like, 70 different ways. It was insane. It was an incredible demo, because it is like, well, how many different ways can you say the word hello? That's acting, you know? So that's what I would suggest for making a demo, is trying to find pieces that change your projection, change the intimacy, change the emotion, change the tone. The same scene can be read as a comedy or as something serious, you know. So there's a lot you can do with that 1 beautiful minute you get. And then as for portfolios, you put that on your Twitter. You go, look, I've got a visual voice reel, or I don't have one of those, but I see them around and I go, oh, that's cool, where it's just, you know, showing off work you've done. But I don't think of those as usually netting agencies or work. I think it's just more of a promotional kind of thing.
Hello, so another talent here, unsurprisingly.
Oh, fantastic. I love seeing talent. I was so worried I was gonna be like, nobody wants to hear about the business.
Oh, of course.
So this is very exciting for me.
Yeah. But for somebody, say, they've already recorded their demos, looking for agencies, I noticed some around the country have the submission process where they ask for a resume as well. So especially for newer talent who haven't voiced in as much, we should look for, I assume, before we apply to these places, like direct marketing, direct ourselves to companies and other production companies before that, so we can kind of build up.
Yeah, I mean, kind of like the hustle thing earlier was like, there's Craigslist and like indie games. Indie games are something you worked on that can go on a resume. Audio dramas and podcasts, those are, you know, productions that can go on a resume. I usually, when I was early in my career, I tended to not put on any fan projects. So like I did Doctor Who audio dramas all the time when I was getting started, but I didn't put my Doctor Who audio dramas on my resume. But I did put Genesis Avalon, which is an original written superhero podcast that I was on. That went on my resume because it was a completed production that I was cast in, and it wasn't, you know. So it's totally legit work that you've done. Agents are, even though it feels sometimes like it's like agents don't want to take a chance on anyone, they are always looking for the new person that's going to make money. Because Because if they don't take a chance on anyone, then eventually things will stagnate, and a different agency that did take chances will have that new sound that everybody's after. So just try to keep in mind that like they do want you. They're just trying to get a vibe for where you're at and how they can best serve you as a talent. Because as much as we as actors are like, oh my God, I want an agent so bad, I'll do anything for an agent, I work for the agent also works for you. They need to give you something in return. They need to understand how to market your voice, what you want out of your career. Like, as much as it's like, oh yeah, agents want you to do commercials, that agent also needs to recognize that maybe you want to do dubbing or video games and serve you back with those auditions just like you're giving them commercial auditions, you know?
Thank you.
No problem.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Brian. I'm also another upcoming talent as well.
Heck yeah.
But I'm actually from Florida, so.
Okay.
But I don't
there's places in Florida.
Yeah, I was just kind of like a little wondering, should I be, because I'm bilingual, so I was wondering if I should kind of, apply like all the stuff that I learned, like voice acting in English into Spanish more, or like try and focus more on mastering my own voice before expanding on others, or kind of like a mix of both?
I would say a mix of both. I think just like we were talking about versatility earlier, and it's like, oh, well, that's a tool in your toolkit that makes you more attractive. Being bilingual absolutely makes you more attractive. It's super cool to an agent to be like, oh, great, they can do the English auditions and the Spanish auditions, because with commercials, as we go back to commercials, a lot of times they produce an English one and a Spanish one, and if they can get the same talent to do both, that's easy peasy for them to schedule.
There's professional actors who are also bilingual. I mean, Alejandro Sack, he's fluent in both English and Spanish.
Yes, that's true. I mean, yes, there are absolutely actors that are fluent in multiple languages. Some actors are fluent in Japanese, which is nice when you're dubbing Japanese because you can understand the original stuff if there's a problem with the script. So by all means, you should apply the acting skills that you're learning in English to also improving you as an actor in Spanish. But yeah, it's just, that's an extra thing you have as a marketing point for you, that you're bilingual, which is great.
Thank you.
Okay. I want to make sure I answered your question there.
Hey. I actually just had a question about one of your roles that you did. Laura Victoriana from the Evil Within. I'm a huge Evil Within fan.
Nice.
So Laura has a monster form in the game, and she's terrifying. I've platted the game, and she still terrifies me.
She terrifies me too.
So I was wondering, how did you do all the screaming for her without throwing out your voice?
It's so funny because the audition for that character was, I think they had like 2 lines from the scene in the barn, and then it was scream. And so I did. I'm not going to hear one because I don't need to hurt my voice, and 2 because everyone would go ow. But I was just like, okay, a blood-curdling scream, and I did a blood-curdling scream, and then they were like, oh, Japan loved your scream so much, so you booked the character. And I was like, that's great. It's so funny because my name is Laura and her name is Laura. But yeah, honestly, as far as how I did it without injuring my voice, technically I didn't do, I mean, it was a stressful session, but the director was everybody was aware and cognizant that like, okay, this is gonna be a hard session. We're gonna take lots of breaks. We're gonna drink lots of water. If you need anything, you let us know. And I mean, I can't remember how many takes of the screams we did, but fortunately for me, the higher pitched screams don't really work my voice too hard. It's when I'm actually, the stuff that's hard on me is like doing Valentine or like the deeper voice stuff. If I have to be loud and deep, that's really stressful on my voice. I have to be very like aware of everything that's happening whenever I do those kinds. I've got it with me, I think. I've got this cute little thing called a voice straw. Ta-da! Plug for the voice straw that lets you do like exercises that uses back pressure to help like reset your vocal cords. It was designed by an ENT and a vocal coach. But when you're doing those video games, there's no technique where you're not going to be exhausted the next day or need to take vocal rest for a day or 2. I just kind of lucked out that I only needed like a day of rest after doing Laura. But when you book that job, everybody knows, so they usually try to book it for the end of the week so you can rest over the weekend. Everyone's really aware, especially now, of how vocally intense these video games can be. And I feel like people are taking it seriously and trying to take care of their talent because, yeah, it's our livelihood. We don't want to blow our voice out and then change the way we sound forever. But yeah, did that answer?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm another up-and-coming talent.
Heck yeah.
So at the end of during credits for anime, a lot I see that the ADR scripts were done by actors a lot. And I was curious how one gets into that, and if knowing Japanese is something you need to know for doing script ADR or anything like that.
You do not have to be fluent in Japanese to do ADR adaptation. There's 2 different roles in the process, and usually the studio, so let's just say Deluxe, because I've worked with them. So let's say Deluxe, for example, they'll hire a translator that will translate the script that they're given. And then the person doing the adaptation will get the translation and adapt that to the flaps. Sometimes translators do adaptations, sometimes directors do adaptation. So you might see like, oh, adaptation, and I like Alex Von David does adaptation and direction, for example. Not always, but sometimes. I did adaptation and direction for Godzilla. The reason you see a lot of actors doing it is because when you're in the booth doing a session, there are always rewrites. It's not even the sign of a bad adapter. It's just, there's no way for any adapter to know exactly how a line is going to be performed until that person's in the booth performing it. So adaptations are like, adjustments to the adaptation are inevitable. And so when you've done enough work in the booth behind the mic, you start to get a feel for like how you just start to see it. It's like a rhythm thing, and you're like, it's like watching enough DDR and then being like, oh, I think I could actually see how that's gonna play out just from looking at the step map without actually getting on the pad yet, yeah. So that's why you see a lot of crossover there, just because they have that experience, and also they know the studios, and the studios are like, we really need an adapter. Could you maybe do this for us? But I also know the Deb Crane is not an actress, but is an adapter and has done fantastic adaptation. She worked on Sailor Moon, for example. She built a portfolio, but I want to say, don't quote me on this, I want to say she did, like she took a show, had it translated, and did a sample basically as a voiceover demo, but for adaptation, and then went to studios saying like, hey, I'm available for adaptation, here's a sample of my work. So that would be what I would suggest is the best way, the most straightforward way to try and do it if you're not going through from being an actor to just, if you want to go straight for adaptation. Yeah, I think that's, and there are programs that you can familiarize yourself if you're doing adaptation, like VoiceQ and Rhythmoband, because certain studios for live action dubbing, there's a big need for adapters for live action dubbing because there's just a lot of that content that people don't necessarily realize is out there. So,
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, so to start off, I have 2 questions. Should I only ask one?
Let's start with one. Are they 2 related questions?
They're separate questions, but the voice acting.
Well, let's just do one and then
okay, that's
get back to mine.
So my question is, do you get, this is specifically for video games and also for anime, but in mind I have like Kasumi in my head like when I ask this question. Do they give you context for the scenes when you voice act? I'm not really, by the way before, I don't know much about voice acting, so.
But it's still a question about the business. The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. Sometimes you get sometimes you will get these breakdowns. I'm sure that if you come to my audition panel tomorrow with KG, we'll probably talk about it. I have some sample sides for that, and he does too. Sometimes you get 2 pages. Like, here's the entire breakdown of the show, and this is the world, and this is... what the main character's favorite breakfast food is, and then you get a second whole page being like, your character is the main character's dog, and he has an itchy butt, and like everything on the planet, and then you get the sides, and the sides are like, woof woof, howdy, and you're like, great, thank you for all of that information. And then other times, you get a piece of paper with 5 lines, and no context, and they're like monologues, where it's like, my father wouldn't have wanted this for you. How could you do this to me and our family? I thought I trusted you, you know? And then you're like, I have no idea what's going on or who, anything. And then they also range anywhere in between. So that's part of the challenge of like doing auditions, cold reading, and voice acting is seeing the sides, whether they give you an entire book and then no lines, or a million lines and no context, and just making strong decisions and putting something out there that hopefully reaches them. But that's also the reason why sometimes you could do some really excellent work and not book the job because you weren't psychic and didn't know like what they were looking for that character if they didn't provide you any info. When I make audition sides, I try to put a picture in if I'm able to, give some age range, a little bit of a description of like what I kind of want the voice to sound like. If I'm able to get Japanese reference, I will also put that in because that's always helpful for anime. And then I do give context. So I'll have like 3 lines maybe. I try to pick longer ones and it'll be like, in this scene, our character is talking to his best friend and trying to convince him to go to the party. And then there's the line. That's what I would want out of an audition side as a voice actor, but you don't always get it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello, I am really interested in transitioning from stage acting to voice acting, and so I was wondering if you could talk about if that experience would be relevant and would it be something to plug to a potential agent or a director?
Absolutely. My understanding, I did a little stage, but like in high school, so I'm not speaking as a stage actress, but my understanding from what I've heard from other people in the industry is that the transition from stage to voiceover is a lot easier than the transition from film to voiceover. Like there's a lot of the skills that you use carry through more easily to voiceover than from film. So that's great. Agents love when it's like, oh, she does theater. That's absolutely experience that you can promote and people will appreciate. It's like, she's an actor, she's studied, she's done this, and she's been in these productions. And same thing for film. Like if you've done on-camera stuff, that doesn't mean you have no voice acting experience. It means you have acting experience. Any acting experience you have or classes you've taken are totally eligible to put on a resume or to promote or put on a portfolio.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I happen to be functionally autistic, and the way I've tried to learn some voices is through what's called, the famous quote, imitations of best form of flattery. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to find my own take on like the certain voices. And do you have any advice for those that are like on the autistic spectrum that want to go down with voice acting?
I can't say I have something specific for actors on the spectrum, though I will say I know actors who are on the spectrum and they have very successful careers. So it's totally doable. What I will say about creating character voices and unique character voices is one of my teachers back in the day, terrible impressions are original characters. So if I'm doing an impression of Sean Connery and nobody knows that I'm doing Sean Connery, well then that's an original voice that I just created. Same thing goes for friends and family. If you might have a friend with a really interesting voice, then you could do an impression of them and that's an original character for you now, as long as your friend or family member doesn't mind. But yeah, so it's, like you said, imitation is the highest form of flattery, but if you do it poorly, then you've just created original art.
Thank you so much.